Hang in there, it is!
Smylie Kaufman for 61. Wow.
I'm Smylie Kaufman, and this is The Smylie Show.
Welcome to another special edition of The Smylie Show, one that we are very excited about. First and foremost,
this is not a green screen. It's not a green screen.
This is not. We're not wearing like green suits, and this is all filled in, the CGI in the back end. I mean, we're together in the same place, which always we enjoy from a show perspective, show quality perspective. I think. Let's see if we get the next couple weeks. But is this best show background to date of the year?
Very well could be. Very well could be. This is, we're very lucky that we're here on Monday in Memphis at the first FedEx Cup playoff event. And if you remember last year in Memphis, how hot it was, dude, it's 74 degrees right now. I mean, just the absolute perfect. Some would call it golf weather. I would call it the perfect podcast weather, because this is absolutely great for us. We could have been dying right here out in the heat, but this is off to a good start here in Memphis.
This is an outdoor podcaster's dream. If it was last year, I think we would have had to wear like full khaki outfits in honor of Lucas Glover, umbrella hats, maybe a full Canadian tuxedo just to really give you the full sweat effect of the outdoors. But
the only thing we're missing, Charlie, is just a big plate of barbecue right here.
Oh,
because what time is it right now? We're recording at almost 2 o'clock. You haven't eaten lunch.
Have
you had some ribs right here?
Very hungry. Could go for some ribs. I also got a hot tip on here from your buddy, Alex Sullivan.
Oh gosh.
Jerry's Snow Cones Wedding Cake Supreme. Do you know about this?
I don't know about this.
Sounds amazing.
I did not think Alex would make it onto the podcast today, so that reverse cash that ticket.
That's big. Yeah. So as mentioned, we're here. This is the 18th green at TPC Southwind. We're on site this week and the next 2 weeks in both Denver and Atlanta for the rest of the FedEx Cup playoffs. So fired up for that. We got a great guest joining us today, Nick Dunlap. Our third recurring guest on the show, so looking forward to chatting with Nick about what a wild year it's been, his sort of path to making it to the FedEx Cup playoffs after winning an event as an amateur, and lots to dig into today. But the place we got to kind of start is recapping the last regular season event of the year, the Wyndham Championship at Sedgefield in Greensboro, and boy, what a wild week. Start to finish, but we had like a biblical flood sort of scenario happening with that hurricane to start the week. Play delayed until Friday morning, 18 Friday, 18 Saturday with a few left over, and then for some, Luke Clanton played 39 holes on Sunday.
Insane.
We're
gonna
unpack so much of that, but I think where we got to start is the RaiGuys.
The RaiGuys.
We finally got it done. The RaiGuys got it done.
Technically, we didn't get it done because, as most of you know that follow the show, we give one and done picks every single week. We also give 3 suggestions from Charlie and I. So we have a total of 8 players that we suggest. And as I was going through with my chicken scratch notes and trying to figure out who I want to suggest, I knew I wanted to take Billy Horschel. We had a nice week, finished in top 10. And I had Aaron Rai penciled in, but I had just picked him so many times and suggested him so many weeks in a row. I felt like, I need to find another guy. And so I saw the chicken scratch off of Rai. So if we need to show and check the notes, I can definitely bring that up if there's some haters in the chat that say I didn't actually want to pick Rai. But
I mean, I have a time-stamped screenshot of a text I sent to my buddies where we kind of make some gambling picks each week. And I said, I think I had 2 guys that maybe did not play well, but Aaron Rai is my third. I said, final answer, guys are going to drive the ball straight. It's going to be ball in hand, great ball striker. And he did not place that bet. So, Andrew Yarbrough, you owe me some money, maybe a nice dinner, maybe put my kids through college. That would have been the big ticket. But, I mean, for Rai, is a season where he's played phenomenally well, especially in the summer. Been a phenomenal ball striker.
That's an understatement.
It
really is.
Somehow still an understatement with how well he's played. Just kind of taking stock of the ways he's improved, because he's always been a good ball striker, but really just making some clutch putts down the stretch. I know he's not like the greatest putter on tour, but just making putts when he needs to. It's been a huge improvement. and now rolling with some momentum into the FedEx Cup playoffs. Like, well, what are you seeing from him this year that has really kind of taken him to the next level?
The reason why early in the year that I started to do more recon on Aaron Rai was because I had an opportunity to watch him at the Sony Open this year, and I got moved to his group on a Thursday or Friday. He was playing with Austin Eckroat, so two players that have had nice years. They were both feeding off each other, playing well that day. And for whatever reason, it was a shot on the second hole, and the wind had just kicked up. A storm was kind of brewing, and Aaron Rai laid back on this second hole and pulled, I thought it was probably a 4-iron, hit this, and really the second hole at Sony, you're hitting 3-iron, 9-iron into this hole, or 3-wood wedge. And so he's hitting iron off the tee and then hitting 4-iron into the screen, which nobody ever is hitting 4-iron into the screen. And he hits this absolute stripe right at the hole, and I was like, man, what am I missing something here? Like, that was just absolutely great. And he hit it well the rest of the day, and should have had a better week if it didn't putt it well. And that's when I started noticing the trend of Aaron Rai, which is, okay, he makes a ton of cuts, he tries to get himself in contention, but the putter always seems to kind of hold him back. So I think as the year went on, the big breakthrough for him was at the Rocket Mortgage. He had just gone and met with John Graham, got some work done with his putting, and on greens that are Poana, that were bumpy, maybe not the best putting surface that guys have for making tons of putts on the year, Aaron Rai goes and just starts hooping. And he started making putt after putt at Rocket Mortgage, and then really through the rest of the summer, the John Deere was another week he played really well. Really just any week in the summer, you turn on the TV, and Aaron Rai was on the front page of the leaderboard. So it wasn't surprising to see him win, because it felt like he had played well enough throughout the year to have already won. And I thought the best thing that I heard on the broadcast was from Trevor Immelman. He said the ball striking stats, when you talk about strokes gained, he named 3 players. He said, this is not surprising. These 3 guys are tee to green the best players. You got Scotty Scheffler, Xander Schauffele, and Rory McIlroy. He said number 4 on that list, Aaron Rai.
Wow. Is he talking about metrics there or eye test?
No,
for him?
metrics.
Metrics.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a shock.
Stats.
It's facts. Straight hashtag facts. I know we're a year away. Like, we're still waiting for a President's Cup to happen here in about a month and a half. But just really doing the long preview for Ryder Cup.
I was thinking about that.
Because you just don't know. I mean, who knows what's going to happen between now and then? It seems like obviously guys on the team, Rory said as much out loud that he wants Jon Rahm to be there. I'm assuming he feels similarly about Tyrrell Hatton. But, depending on how that whole thing shakes out and how they're going to tabulate world ranking points for the LIV guys and what picks they're going to use, he could very easily, he could qualify for the thing.
Oh, 100%. Aaron Rai could easily qualify for the Ryder Cup. I think that Luke Donald is, I think you got to give him, all the credit where credit's due when it comes to picking a team, because I thought, beginning of the year and halfway through the year, I thought the Europeans were going to be, really lacking depth on that team, but that team really started to round into form as we got approached to the Ryder Cup, had a bunch of youth on that team. So we'll see who ends up making that roster, of how much of that team will stay intact from the Ryder Cup in Rome. But man, Aaron Rai just seems like he would be a really nice fit for a day of alternate shot.
How do you think 2 gloves, iron covers, and deliberate pace of play are going to do in Bethpage? Think that's going to go over? Think it's going to go over well with that crowd?
I think, I'd spoken to Keegan just briefly just about him getting picked, and we were talking just about the logistics of the Ryder Cup as far as, how much beer is being served, because I was like, man, are they serving liquor out there? I was like, I think just in the suites, because if they gave liquor to the crowd, I think you would have an issue. So we were already talking about this in advance of how crazy New York crowd's going to be for the Ryder Cup.
I'm sure Keegan's got to be thrilled for the atmosphere he's about to walk into as a captain, which is going to be super cool. Second item I have on this list here, Smylie, just says Kuch Khaos.
Wait, did you spell chaos with a K too?
I should have. That's a big miss. I'll make that correction. Like, you're having to put a lot of faith and trust in us. We're telling you that we were picking Aaron Rai on notes you can't see or text that we sent. But I have Kuch Khaos here. What's it make of? Because I actually saw an interview this morning my granddad sent me where Kuchar was explaining a little bit more of his side of things. And so, because the first inclination I have is like, dude, the tour bent over backwards to get this thing done on time with a hurricane, tropical storm, whatever it was coming in, to get the 18-18-36 finish. And you were the last guy that needed to finish it up so that everyone could get done and move on to Memphis for the guys that were going there. And those guys could leave anyway. It didn't really affect the outcome of the tournament. But, you know, your first inclination is like, come on, buddy, just finish the hole. Now, he said a little bit of, it wasn't explained to him that Rye had birdied ahead, and he thought Greyserman still had a real legit chance to go to a playoff or win the tournament. He thought they were going to have to come back on Monday anyway. And so, you know, I don't know if that makes it any better in your opinion, but just your reaction to the way that Kuchar decided to finish Sunday and a little bit on Monday as well.
Well, I think the big argument made by a lot of fans and media was that there wasn't necessarily anything on the line from their perspective. Now, I think Matt Kuchar would offer the opposite of that, is that he's 46 years old. You know, from where he stood, going from 12th place to 22nd place. Yeah, maybe not the money's not a big issue, because $50,000 would have been the difference. Or let's say he makes a double, then probably closer to $75,000 difference. But, you know, I always give the benefit of the doubt to the player, whether they feel like they should finish. They have the right to. If they're not, if they're told, hey, you don't have to play because of sunlight, I think you should always give that to the player. I think what's in question now is just the history, right? I think people just have had issues with things that Matt has done over the years, whether it's the caddy in Mexico, is kind of the top of line thing that people think of. But, you know, if you replace Matt Kuchar with another player, I think maybe the conversation's a little different. Not that Matt Kuchar isn't a well-liked player, because he has been a very well-liked player on tour for a lot of years and has done a great work on and off the golf course, and I like Matt. But I think it just kind of came off a little the wrong way, as a little petty of like, hey, Max Greyserman, like you should have stopped on the 16th hole. It's like, well, no, that wasn't an option. You know, like the tour didn't blow the horn, the sun hadn't gone down
at that point.
You know, he's trying to win his golf tournament on Sunday. Kuchar wasn't in it, so he has a different perspective that maybe Max Greyserman did. And maybe it was a veteran move of like, hey, you know what? Every shot does count. And hey, let's say it comes down for Matt Kuchar in the FedEx Cup fall. Let's say he doesn't make a cut, and it comes down to one shot. And
that's a good point.
And he keeps his card for the top 125, because he did make the jump from, I think it was 113 to 103. So he made a 10-spot jump. So he's got, you know, 17, or let's see, that was not good math. He's got about 22 spots of comfort. That took me way too long. I haven't taken math since LSU freshman year, so
I didn't take much of it there either.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. But if it comes down to one shot, which we've seen a lot of times it has, I mean,
that's something I hadn't even thought about until right now, is we're so focused on Wyndham being that 70 hard cut line that so wait a second, a lot of these guys have to go and play the whole fall to finish top 125 and keep their playing status that way. So that's a fair point. I mean, I think that, the optics aren't good on it. Either Matt Kuchar doesn't have the internet or doesn't care about the internet, and in either case, congrats to him, because like it's like a walking meme. It's and all the past stuff, it's if
you just take away what you set up the whole conversation with, which was, it was a very challenging week for the superintendent, the whole staff at Sedgefield, just to get this golf course playable. I mean, there were holes out there that I sent pictures of. The 7th hole looked like the 17th hole at TPC Sawgrass. It was an island green, and same with the hole before it at 6. Where the whole fairway was covered with water. So to make this golf course playable and actually finishing on Sunday was an incredible feat. Now, the tournament didn't finish on Sunday. It finished on Monday because of Kuchar. But I think it's something that was obviously just made an event that much crazier, because the chaos that you talked about with Matt Kuchar also. We talked just briefly about Max, but that was the story of the day, which was a 4-shot lead with Max Greyserman.
Well, and let's get right into that, because it looked like he holed out, was that 13 or 14 for Eagle to get 21 under 13. And at that point, you're thinking 4-shot lead. I think Ryder's still at 17 at that point, and you're thinking this thing's done. And I was flying here to Memphis, so I was like trying to catch up and get like the weird thing on the plane where you're not going to pay for the internet, but you get the iMessage, so I'm getting updates from you and Jax. And you're like, this thing's getting crazy. Like, how? You had a 4-shot lead. And so, you know, when Kuchar talked a little bit about that, where does he 4-putt, you know, if it's lighter outside, I don't know. I mean, it's easy to play Monday morning quarterback on that now, but what we do know is that, and this is, you know, twice now where he's handled defeat exceptionally well, and clearly he's got the game to win on tour, you know, and so I think that, you know, however it shakes out, he made it here this week. He's in this field.
Yes.
And he's got an opportunity to make some noise in the FedEx Cup playoffs and get himself into signature events next year.
Yes. Max Greyserman, I thought he handled yesterday with tremendous class. You know, it was not easy to be in the arena like that and handle the adversity. He could have easily shown a bunch of emotion. There's, you know, he didn't have to do the interview after the round with Amanda Balionis. He could have said, you know what, I'm good. I'm out of here. And he had every right to say, you know what, I don't want to talk to the media after something that maybe as a former player you can consider to be, you know, embarrassing that you didn't get the job done. You know, I thought he held his head high, you know, tremendously, to where he was very poised in his conversation. I think he acknowledged the mistake that he made, which was on the 14th hole. You know, bad drives happen, and we don't like cart pass on golf courses because for somebody who tends to be a little off with the driver, that cart path has a magnet for my golf balls. And his ball hits the cart path, goes OB at 14. So that happens, right? Like he makes one poor swing, but where he compounded his errors was he hits it in the left rough next, and there's a cross bunker on the 14th hole. So if you did watch it, bear with me, but if you didn't, he had an opportunity to either take on this cross bunker and push it up short of the green to where he had an opportunity to get up and down and make a 6, but instead he tried to challenge it because he didn't want to make a bigger number. The rough was just sinking to the bottom, hits it into this bunker, and unfortunately ends up chunking it out, chipping up, not getting up and down, and making an 8. He acknowledged his mistake. I should have wedged it short of the bunker. Had a good opportunity to get up and down. He just holed out on the previous hole with the wedge and making an eagle. So who's to say he wouldn't get up and down for a double bogey? So there's 2 shots there. And then quickly on 16, you know, you talk about the 4-putt. Would it have happened if it wouldn't have been, you know, as late in the day? I think that's part. You know, it's tough to read greens late in the day, and I think the mistake was on the lag putt. So he hits it. He's got a 40-50 footer, which is not necessarily easy to get it, you know, in that. I mean, these guys are really good, right? But his speed was good all day, and he left it above the hole. I thought that was a big mistake, right?
Like this seen that come back to bite some guys this
when
year,
you got
right?
a 1-shot lead, just like time and place. Like you don't need to make that putt. And I know it's easy for me to say, it's like, dude, you should have left it short of the hole. But, you know, I thought he got a little too aggressive on the putt. And then, hey, a 3.5 footer down the hill, like we saw this in the U.S. Open. They're not easy to make.
Not at all. Well, and here we're gonna peel the curtain back a little bit here and take you behind the scenes and also tease our next segment, because we've already talked to Nick Dunlap. And you made an interesting note there about talking about that decision to take on that cross bunker and the difference in that rough. And that's part of the game where, from an amateur level, I find so fascinating talking about the different composition of courses. And we heard Nick Dunlap talk to his caddy, you know, about the difference in the rough this week compared to last week, where that Bermuda, when it gets grown up and that ball sinks to the bottom, it's just, here's your gap wedge, see how far we can advance it. And so just interesting, you know, both in decision making for Max and trying to make something happen understandably, but also just on the week to week, what we see out here, you know, from tour venues and the way, you know, it looks similar off the tee on TV, but there's so much difference in the way you're playing some of these shots and trying to strategize to shoot a score. And yeah, quad there kind of, you know, pulls it back to the field, and then Aaron Rai pulls ahead, birdies the last, and wins the tournament. You know,
winning is not easy. It's, you know, I think that, you know, you can easily say, you know what, well, he should have won that golf tournament. Well, you're not guaranteed to do anything with 5-6 holes left in a golf tournament. You still have to execute, because out of bounds is all over this golf course at Sedgefield, as somebody who's hit it out of bounds there a couple times. And it's not easy to get to that finish. the 14th tee shot's not easy, 15 tee shot's not easy, and 18's not easy either. So you had to put the ball in play, and unfortunately didn't do it on the 14th hole and paid the price. But I think it's going to be a good learning experience for Max. I'm hoping that, you know, we have like a Kyle Stanley type of bounce back. If you remember, Kyle Stanley was leading at Torrey Pines in San Diego. This is, probably 10 to 12 years ago, and spins it back into the water on that 18th hole at Torrey, ends up losing that golf tournament. Next week he goes out and wins in Phoenix. So maybe a Max Greyserman can kind of just keep building off of, hey, I wasn't really in contention at 3M. I go out and shoot nothing and almost have a chance to be in a playoff at 3M. Opposite of here at Sedgefield, all you're thinking about is like, I'm going to win on the PGA Tour. Mm-hmm. Next thing you know, you're not. So he's seen both sides of it. Both good learning experience. Probably not something that he wanted to go through on the second half, but still, for Max, I think you got to take it and just take the positives from the week that you played, 67 really good holes.
Yeah, and there is more to get to from this tournament, and there's also some kind of playing it forward storylines. We're here sitting at TPC Southwind talking about the FedEx St. Jude and the way this week's going to shake out. So I want to get to that on the other side of Nick Dunlap, because we got to talk about Luke Clanton. We got to talk about some names that barely made it in, that barely missed, and also just taking a look at this whole season. We've been tracking signature event and what it's looking like in terms of turnover for next year, and the numbers, the predicted numbers, we're looking very close on that. So
surprised me.
Let's get into all that, but we're going to take a break first to talk to Nick Dunlap here. It's a really fun conversation. Nick joins us to talk about everything from recapping his entire year to setting goals for next year. Maybe a little Bama football in there.
Just a little.
Just a little bit of Bama football. But we won't waste any more of your time. We're going to get right to that conversation right here on the 18th at TPC Southwind with Nick Dunlap. All right, we are back on the Smylie Show, and as promised, a special guest live here at the 18th green at TPC Southwind. We have Nick Dunlap, who is currently 67th in the FedEx Cup. He's 42nd in the world, and you might be looking at that and saying, where's the discrepancy there? Well, if he would have earned 500 points for winning the American Express, he'd be about 35th in the FedEx Cup standing. So he's where he is. You made the playoffs in your first year as a pro. I mean, a pretty incredible timeline. First thing we got to congratulate you on, though, is you're now the third recurring guest on the Smylie Show. Congrats. It's you, it's Justin Thomas, and it's Jordan Spieth. So
number 3, baby.
Good company.
In addition to everything else you've done, you've got that as well.
I appreciate that. might be my biggest honor.
I tell you what, Nick. I mean, I really am impressed though with just the stats that Charlie just told us about. You being 67th in the FedEx Cup, I think is such a great accomplishment, right? Starting the year with 0 points right after you win the Amex. I think it was going to be a heavy climb just to get to this point. You have to be very proud of being here at Southwind.
Yeah, I mean, even after Amex, like you said, I played poorly at Pebble, played poorly at Genesis, didn't have a good Florida swing. So after, I think it's the Players is the last. No, I didn't play Valspar, but Players is the last of the Florida swing I played. I had like 25 points or something. So that the goal of mine was to make the playoffs, and obviously now I have to rewrite some of those goals. But no, happy to be here.
Understandably so. And Nick, I mean, you win the Amex, so all of a sudden you got to make life decisions. You got to decide: do I want to go back to college? Do I want to go and accept the PGA Tour membership? So I know that was a difficult decision, but kind of an easy one after when it all gets said and done, to chase the childhood dream that you know you had.
Yeah, we almost saw it last week or last couple of weeks with Luke. But college was a big dream of mine. I'm playing for Coach Seawood. I'm playing at Alabama, but my end dream was to play on the PGA Tour and be out here play against the best players in the world. So as much as it kind of sucked to forego that, it was easy but difficult decision to do that. But happy to be here. I mean, the consolation prize was to turn pro, so it was pretty good.
Nick, I saw you in Pebble right after the Amex win, and just you were talking about the whirlwind week that was and trying to make that decision. Also, this is a complete aside, but I saw your name joining the show today, and I was like, man, those sand dabs we had that night are really good. Like, I could really go for some sand dabs now. Yeah. So that has nothing to do with anything we're discussing here, but just figured I'd mention. But just that week and that process you were going through, in this first year as a pro on tour, you've obviously played high leverage golf, competitive golf for your entire life. So a lot of this has to feel, not entirely unfamiliar. What in this year has been the most maybe unexpected adjustment you've made to life as a PGA Tour pro?
The amount of golf you play. I think Smylie can attest to that. He plays so much golf. I mean, it's August, and I'm already like, man, I'm looking forward to a break. I mean, it's getting used to a schedule out here. I'm so used to practicing at home for a week. You got to figure out time to practice, but not wear yourself out when you got 3 and 4 weeks in a row on the road. And there's a couple parts of my game I wanted to see get better, and one of them is driving the golf ball, and one of them is chipping. I feel like I'm getting slowly progressing in those categories. I think in amateur golf, it doesn't. You don't get as penalized hitting it offline, and you can kind of play from out of the rough. And here it seems like every week it's like, all right, if you're out of the rough, you're not really going to score that ball. I mean, you can figure out a way to get it around, but you're not going to contend. So I think that was something that I really needed to get better.
And how much of that, you're talking about obviously a lot of on-the-course stuff. Was there an off-the-course adjustment process where you have to build like a team around you? There's all sorts of things you have to think about that are beyond just trying to get the ball in a hole for 4 days of the week.
Yeah. I've had to deal with a couple of challenges I didn't think I'd have to deal with. But, it's... I didn't realize how many different parts there was to professional golf. I didn't realize that, like you said, you have to form this team around you that can handle all your stuff going outside of golf that you may not have to spend energy on, and the less amount of time you can do that, the more amount of time you can spend doing time what you love to do, and that's playing golf. So that's been a little, I've had to play a role in who I select and on what parts they're going to help with. So that's been a little difficult. But I always thought, with this PGA Tour University, which hopefully we get to talk about that.
Oh,
but
yeah. I think we will.
I thought I would have some time, and I'd have 2, 3, 4 months, and I'm gonna be able to plan this out and have time before I turn professional. I didn't think I'd have 4 to 8 hours, so it was that part was a little challenging, but yeah.
Do you think learning on the fly has been beneficial, or do you wish you had more time to plan out? Just like, am I ready? Just all the steps that you take. You talked about the driving, the chipping.
Yeah.
Do you feel like learning on the fly on the golf course against the best players in the world has been more helpful for you long term?
Yeah, I think it's hard to see it sometimes, especially I hear the margins are so small. As you know, it's like I feel like there's a lot of weeks you're at 2 or 3 under, and you're like, man, like I'm 2 good swings away from being in 10th and 2 good swings away from going home. So it's or 2 bad swings away from going home. But it's it's taught me a lot about not necessarily letting the result dictate how you're feeling. I think even last week, I feel like I played some good golf. I got 1 bad break and made triple and 1 sloppy 3-putt, and those were my only 2 over par holes, and I just didn't really make any putts, and I ended up missing the cut. So it's like,
that's how it goes.
Yeah, it's like the result's bad, but I didn't feel like I played that poorly. So it was trying to progress that way. But yeah, I think it's tough in the moment to be like, yeah, this is easy, but I think 2 years down the road looking at it, I'm going to be in a much better position than where I would have been staying in college and trying to get better that way. So.
And as rookies, I think preparation is something that we all know that PGA Tour players do. Like, it's something that I think is assumed by fans that everybody does work hard. But there's certain categories that guys are in that guys that are the better players that have been out here a while, they get the pro-am spots, they get the good times.
Yeah.
But for you all year, you've been learning new golf courses, not in the pro-ams, and you're traveling to new cities, you're don't know where the locker room is. Even today, had no idea where the 18th green is.
I didn't know where it was.
Every week is a new experience for you. How difficult has that been? How excited are you for next year to finally know where you're going?
Yeah, very. And the golf courses, like
right.
It's funny, a lot of the time it's either Sunday evening or Mondays when I travel. It's like, all right, well, if you count up all the Mondays, like a lot of these veterans get out here Tuesday. It's like if you count up all the Mondays that you're, using throughout the year, like that's a lot of days you could spend,
yes.
resting, whether it's practicing at home, whatever that is. And I remember coming from Reno, I was we missed all day Monday. Monday was washed because the flights Delta was all messed up.
Oh, that was a crazy travel deal.
Had to fly out. Didn't get in until like 6 o'clock on Tuesday. And then I was the second to last Pro-Am tee time, and I was third off in the morning on Thursday. So it was like...
What would that Pro-Am tee time have been? That's like a 4...
No, it was later than that.
It was
almost
than that.
5. It was like 5:30. We didn't get off the golf course till almost like... Didn't leave until 9.
And then you're teeing off
And then we teed off at like 7:14 or something on Thursday.
Oh, man.
So that was... but yeah, I mean, you kind of get thrown into the deep end a little bit, and you learn from it, and you learn how... Hunter is really good at it, but I'm not that great at learning courses on the fly. And learning, whether you look at it once or you don't get to look at it. I'm getting a lot better at that. I used to, in college, you look at it 1 or 2 times, and you have coaches telling you where to go. So it's that's been a little bit different.
And Charlie, I saw Nick Dunlap in the airport. This was leaving the Travelers Championship. He was heading to Detroit. I was heading home, and I look over there, and he's got about 5 bags he's checking. And he looks over at me and says, "Hey, where you heading?" I'm like, "I'm going home." He's like, "All right, never mind." Because the lady behind the desk at Delta is about to just it's like, "Hand me all your credit cards. I'm about to absolutely take you behind the woodshed."
Yeah.
So what was the total on the bag there
It
that week?
was, I think it was almost like $300 for... I mean, you have like 2 extra bags plus like your overweight bags, and yeah, it was a mess.
I learned a fun new trick on this week. All right, so here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna start Nick Dunlap Media LLC.
All right.
You get these media baggage credentials, and they charge you like half of the baggage price when you go past the allotment.
Yeah.
Like they were gonna charge me $125 a bag.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
I had all these media badges. They charged me $75. So I think really the play for you is you get a bunch of we can save some costs here.
Have you heard about Hulme?
Oh yeah, the massive bins.
So
I need to do that.
Hulme is a guy that travels week to week out on tour, and you can buy a bin, and you could store things that you would already need out on tour. So shoes, people put their clothes in there, like just regular golf clothes, and I had a bin for the years I was out here, and just would make travel so much simpler. If we're Nick had like 5 bags, I'm like, oh, poor guy.
And the tough part is like one of my bags is like half of it's all my fishing stuff. So I got my fishing pole, I got all my extra crap in there. So it'd be nice if I could just have that delivered. No, I don't.
What's the best fishing stop you've had tour stop wise this season? Have you found like any new ones where you haven't gone before?
I guarantee you this is a good one.
This is probably. I didn't
3M would be my guess.
Well, I didn't get to fish because we got in super late on Tuesday. Played
Players would be a good one.
Players was a good one. I can't remember where we were. It was up in I fished in Rhode Island. It was only a couple weeks ago. Was it the Travelers maybe? It might have been the Travelers.
The whole season runs together.
Yeah, it all runs together.
How many times have you woken up this year in a hotel and have no idea what city you're in?
Yeah, no idea where you're at.
You're like, I'm in... Where am I?
Yeah.
It's hard enough to keep the schedule straight as it is, but then to do it off of fishing stops makes it
even harder. I think it was Travelers. Travelers, I went and fished the coast for a little bit, and that was...
Did you?
Yeah, it was really pretty. It was a lot of fun.
So you kind of noted this a little bit, and hidden underneath that table over there is a gasoline take for Smylie's flamethrowers of takes on the PGA Tour U topic. So I'm really excited to get into those. But
all right, let's hear it.
Just curious, your opinions on obviously what you did, what you were leading into. You win, you have the decision to go pro off of that, so it's simpler for you. But what we're seeing from Luke Clanton and others, guys who are very obviously tour caliber pros. I mean, Luke's had 3 top 10 finishes this year, 2 of them top 5s.
Yeah.
And where he currently, I think he's at 13 points currently of the 20 he needs. I mean, do you think, we've been kicking around some ideas, do you think the system should be adjusted, or do you think it's fair how it is?
I don't want to be too harsh on it. It did give me the platform to go out, and that's the reason I got the Amex start, was because I pitched that PGA Tour U. Mm-hmm. And for one, I think it's the whole idea of it's unbelievable. Like, it's giving us an easy way to get to the PGA Tour. And I wouldn't say easy, but it's giving us a way to get to the PGA Tour.
Better pathway, right?
Yeah, and whether that's Corn Ferry, whether that's Canada, it gives us, we don't have to go to Q school, which is great. Something that...
Q school's not fun. Not great, Bob.
And hopefully I don't have to go to Q school. But I do think maybe the points, there's a way to... Because I was talking to Smylie, there's going to be a time where these high-end college players don't play college events. They're just going to chase the PGA Tour stars, which I was on that track. I probably would have done the same thing. It's I think some may question it. I think it's a lot easier to come out here and make a cut and get a point than it is to go and try to win the Western Am and get 2 points.
Interesting.
Like, it doesn't.
Yeah.
I think, especially if you are a high-end player, if you can get these spots off sponsored exemptions, I think it is the way to go. Like, you go and win the US Am. Well, that's 3 points. Like, I think, you might could attest to this.
Yeah.
I think it's easier to make 3 cuts out here than it is to win the United States Amateur.
Yeah.
I think,
100%.
So I would do the exact same thing. Now, I don't know if there's a way to elevate that, whether, like you said, top 10 I think should be more than 1 extra point. So I think if you gave 2 points, like an extra point on top of that, I think Luke would probably already be there.
And we're with you on this. I mean, the system in general, we support the PGA Tour U. We think it's a great pathway for college guys to go play well, earn their way on. But with the way things have changed in the professional golf landscape, we just think maybe just a re-examination of somebody who's like, well, maybe we need to look at, hey, a top 5 might be worth a couple more points when you look at it against, hey, what else are they comparing the points to? But we'll get off that subject because we don't want to get you in trouble. And we don't want to get in trouble either.
Also, we like all of us to leave this set not being in trouble.
But one of the questions I had cooked up here is that, when you win the Amex, now you're in a category where you're playing with other winners, you're playing with top tour talent. And when it happened to me, I embrace the opportunity when I play with these players to try to pick their brains a little bit, just about anything, whether it's, hey, this is what did you do down the stretch? Did you do X? And I'm just curious, was there any advice that you picked up on from a certain player this year that stands out that you've been able to implement throughout the year, or maybe something that you're going to use in years to come?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I don't know if anybody's asked me that. That's a good question. I would probably say Will Zalatoris, honestly. I played a practice round with him with the players, and I don't think it was necessarily what I asked him. I think it was watching him and how he prepared for that tournament. It was very structured. Scotty's very similar in that. He's like, I think Teddy helps him a lot with where to chip from. They have the app or something where you can see stats from years previous and where to, it might be the percentage of making a birdie may be better from the right rough than the left rough, so you're aimed another 4 yards right or whatever that is.
So, like, you feel like they had a plan when they showed up in a practice
100%.
round? Where you're like,
100%.
Where for a rookie showing up, you're just like, well,
I hate practice rounds anyway.
Let me learn the holes, you know?
Yeah.
But these guys are already looking at hole locations, pins on Sunday, and where to chip and putt from.
Yeah. So I think, Will had a very good, because I hated practice rounds in college. I hate them here. I just don't like practice rounds. But seeing how he prepared, and there may be a couple, whether it's 2 or 3 shots a tournament, where it's like there's this left pin. It's like, man, I didn't really get to look over there. Like, is that bad? Like, can I attack this pin? I don't know. And there's that little uncertainty that maybe I should play a little further right, and that could be a shot or two a tournament.
That's interesting.
So just seeing the way he kind of talked about it, seeing the way he practiced, where he putted from to these certain holes, it was very, very eye-opening for me.
Charlie, are you familiar with PGA West, where he won the MX?
Yes, absolutely.
So are you familiar with the 16th hole there, that par 5 with the big bunker left? When you talked about a left pin that you weren't sure about, it's my rookie year on the 16th hole. I never in the practice round went down in that bunker.
I went down there.
And I'm hitting my second shot on Sunday. I'm like 7 under, playing great. Hit it down in the bunker, and I get down there, and I was like, holy, I wish I would have gone here in the practice round and knew this was this bad.
Yeah, it is literally, there's a reason people are hitting it up, like, in the people, like, right, like 40 yards right up into the hill. Like, it is, I do remember, as long as you're short, like, chipping kind of back up the green out of that bunker, but if you are hole high, it is.
Hole high, buddy.
I mean, like, big old red X. It's no bueno.
Amazing. I think, Nick, it's fascinating to hear you talk about decision-making process for guys that are amateurs coming through the college ranks of, hey, it's easier to come out here and try to make a cut than to try to win Western Intercollegiate or something like that. And I think what that speaks to is it's amazing how much young talent we have right now, both currently still playing college or like you just making it out on tour. And I'm looking ahead to like the President's Cup this fall, Ryder Cup next year. And if I'm Jim Furyk or I'm Keegan Bradley, I got a list and it's got your name on it, Davis Thompson, Luke Clanton, Gordon Sargent, maybe even throw in Michael Thorbjornsen or Jackson Koiven.
Yeah.
Just because you look at what Luke Donald did, betting in guys like Ludwig Aubert, Nikolai Højgaard, and Rome, and obviously Ludwig's kind of on a plane of his own, but just trying to create a pipeline of young American talent. Yeah. I'm curious, has anyone from those team setups reached out to you to kind of stay in contact and whether it's for this President's Cup this fall or beyond, kind of say, hey, we're trying to kind of get you in this pipeline and have you on a team in the years to come?
I played with Jim actually my first. Yeah, I think it was my first ever U.S. Open I played with him. I think I won the U.S. Junior and he won, maybe it was the U.S. Senior Open, so I got to play with him and met him then. That was a lot of fun. That was my first eye-opening hard golf course, I think, and some things I needed to get better, and it was, I talked to him for about an hour after the round and just picked his brain on some things I needed to get better on. But yeah, I played with Keegan at 3M right after Reno this year. I don't know if that was on purpose or coincidental, but either way, it was nice to meet him and get to talk to him a little bit. But yeah, for right now, it's completely focused on the playoffs. But the Ryder Cup is it's got a big circle around it. That's for sure.
Well, that.
Yeah.
I mean, you're pretty good at match play. I can, if you need me to just send over to Keegan or Jim your match play record.
One, yeah.
I think at one point last year I was doing the math. You'd won close to about 20 straight matches or something like that. I know you and Jeff and I were trying to figure out the math on it. It was a lot to a little. That's all I know. So obviously it's something that you're very good at. And it's not coincidental. So we're at the playoffs. We're at TPC Southwind the same week as the U.S. Amateurs going on where you won last year. So we're here. Last year when the USAM, you got all the dreams in front of you. You don't know what it looks like. Did you ever see that you'd be sitting in this chair right here a year later?
No. If you would have said, going into the USAM, if you would have said, hey, you're going to win 2 college tournaments and you're going to make 2 cuts in the PGA Tour, I'd be like, yeah, that did pretty good. Like, see my game elevating? Like, but no, if you would have said, fast forward a year and I'd be sitting here like, I don't even know what I would have said, but it is fun. Like, I'm looking back, it's gonna be fun to watch the USAM this year because it's gonna change somebody's life just like it did mine, and it's just the platform they give you. Like, it is the pinnacle of amateur golf. Like, you get to play in 3 majors. You're playing in front of ginormous TV cameras, big crowds. It prepares you for, not exactly the crowds you're going to see out here, but the cameras, like, it's the exact same thing. So it'll be fun to watch it do the same to somebody else.
Last one I've got, I'll keep it quick. I just can't leave you without asking a question about 5th preseason Alabama football.
Yeah, how many
head
wins?
Coach.
How many wins?
Came on the board. How many wins? And also, have you picked up the sticks yet? I know you're very busy, but have you played EA college football yet? Because
I haven't.
I'm down around.
I haven't. Typically, I do travel with my PlayStation.
Okay.
I haven't these past 2 weeks for whatever reason. I don't know why, but I typically do. But I haven't played it yet.
If you're short on time, just leave it at home.
Yeah.
Do not. I've had a lot of
that's what I've heard.
2 a.m. nights trying to get North Carolina football back up to high heights. But I mean, what do you think about the Crimson Tide this year with the new head coach?
I got to spend a little bit of time with him. I helped out Coach Saban with one of his charity events in Birmingham. He was there, and we sat in a hole and hit some shots together. And it's different than Coach Saban, obviously. He's got a different mindset towards it. Coach Saban's obviously very old school, very disciplined, very, obviously his one way worked for him for a long, long time. And I think Coach DeBoer is doing a really good job of how the new game's being played. He's adapted really well, and obviously his record stands for itself. I think the guys have responded really well to him, and I think that's all that matters personally. I think if the guys buy into what he's doing, then we're going to be pretty good. So I think we're going to have I think we're playing. Is it at Arkansas? Maybe. No, it's not Arkansas.
They'll play at Wisconsin.
It's at Wisconsin. Yeah, that'll be the test, and then obviously Georgia at home will be the
Early in the season, you find out what type of team you're going to have.
Yeah,
I mean,
so.
I think a lot of people are predicting, being right on that cusp of probably being on an SEC championship team. But with the new divisions, and meaning no divisions, and it's just a wide open SEC with Texas and Oklahoma joining, we'll see if DeBoer can get them there. I mean, shoot, Les Miles won a national championship at LSU following Nick Saban, and I would probably take Caleb DeBoer over Les Miles. So I think he could probably do it at Alabama as well.
It does help having a, I don't know if Jalen's a senior or a junior, but it helps having
a guy who's been there
that has some experience under the lights. So I don't think they're going to be.
All right, we'll see, man.
Yeah.
Well, best of luck this week at TPC Southwind.
Yeah.
If you need any directions or a roadmap of where to go,
I know
next.
This is 18. I saw the range, and I'll have to figure everything else out.
We see some fish, over there. Maybe some bites over there if you're going to bring the pole out.
Oh, I definitely will. I have it in my car. So.
Appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, guys.
There you have it. Nick Dunlap on a variety of different topics. Really enjoyed catching up with him. And hey, look, our third recurring guest. And we just might have a fourth this week.
Just might have
a fourth this week.
Yeah.
We'll let you take a guess in the comments who the fourth might be this week. Few more items to recap from Wyndham. Kind of played it forward a little bit. One is one that we just discussed with Nick. Very hot on this topic. Luke Clanton finishes solo fifth. Would have earned him 110 FedEx Cup points this week for this finish. To date this year and the starts he's been given in just PGA Tour events, not talking about majors here, but he's finished top 10 3 times, and 2 of those have been top 5s. And he's earned, of course, a point at each of those events for making the cut, but only 1 additional point for those top 10 finishes. And we're talking here about PGA Tour U Accelerated standings. Once you get to 20 points, you earn your tour card. Gordon Sargent has done just that. Jackson Coyven, I believe, sits at 17 points, and Luke is in third with 13 points. But to just expand on that a little bit and some of the ideas we introduced with Nick of ways we could, just take stock of what's a good system, creating pathways for young players and make it better. And you suggested, a bonus point for top 5 finishes. I've suggested maybe a multiplier for multiple top 10 finishes. Where's your head on this right now?
So for the PGA Tour U and the criteria that it's kind of laid out, I would say that for the players that are playing in college versus the guys like Luke Clanton, who's had success on the tour, there's more points awarded for good play in college. Mm-hmm. And I think the argument that Luke Clanton should make and that I'm making is that it's more difficult to earn a top 10 on the PGA Tour than it is for some of the criteria that's currently listed on the PGA Tour U Accelerated program list. I would just like that, whether it's a top 10 or a top 5, to equal that of some of winning some of these events in college, to where PGA Tour U right now in this program, you get 1 point for a made cut on tour, you get 1 point for a top 10. I would argue that there should be a top 5 category that awards 3 points, or maybe even 4, because I think that's very difficult to do. Mm-hmm. And then a top 10 would maybe be closer to 2 points versus just 1.
I think we've arrived at this place because we have a very good problem on our hands for the PGA Tour U program and the Accelerated program. There is a lot of good young talent getting these opportunities to play in PGA Tour events. So that's a great thing, and I think it's like, let's commend this program for getting us to where we are now, where we're saying, hey, these guys are so good that we should look at changing this thing.
Right.
But I do think I completely agree with your point, which essentially is, what is the best indicator of whether or not a guy's going to succeed on the PGA Tour? It's probably playing in PGA Tour events.
That's what I'm saying.
So if you do it and you top 10 3 times, we should probably be saying, okay, you look very tour ready by the look of it. And I think it's, again, great problem to have. And I'm sure there have to be discussions happening by whoever administrates this program right now of like,
well, it's because we're tweeting at
them. You're welcome, all you collegiate athletes out there.
And like we said with Nick, as we teed it up, we support the program. We think it's fantastic.
Yeah, it's amazing.
But as things are changing in this whole landscape, we just want the Luke Clantons of the world, who, from my perspective, if you go look at how many points he would have earned if he was a PGA Tour member, he would have earned, our stats department, by the way, crushed this morning. Charlie doing some research. 400 points is what he would have earned. That would put him right at 100th on the FedEx Cup points list, which would be in front of Matt Kuchar, who we talked about a moment ago. So, with that being said, and Luke Clanton being technically, if he was a PGA Tour member, enough to have already secured a card for next year, that's where the argument goes to, all right, how close is he to the 20 points necessary? And sitting at 13, it feels like that is a little further away than where he should be.
I agree. I also love that, this is the second year running where we've had, the shadow FedEx Cup. We were doing, Minwoo Lee's special temp points last year, and now we were doing Nick Dunlap if he got points for winning the AMX, and maybe that's something we'll workshop for year 2 with the tour is, can Charlie award these players a shadow FedEx Cup? It's not the real thing. It's just the what would have been thing.
And one of the arguments, too, that I've seen on social media is that why don't amateurs get FedEx Cup points? They're playing. They should get them.
Yeah.
I think it's way different teeing up as an amateur than it is as a pro. And we're not advocating that he should be granted FedEx Cup points, because I think there is an element to, teeing it up as an amateur, there's, when you're a pro, it's the responsibilities of being a pro, and what that it entails is, it's a lot more stress.
Well, there has to be some sort of dividing line. So I understand it, as much as we may look at it and say, well, it's the same thing as hitting a ball and there's the OB stake and there's the other OB stake and it's just out of bounds. I should be able to play this. It's right here. It's like the OB line's got to be somewhere.
And Luke Clanton, if the decision he has to make whether he wants to stay pro or stay amateur or return pro, he won't be able to play member guests if he turns pros. And I think that's the ultimate decider here.
Got to be a huge motivating factor.
He shouldn't get FedEx Cup points, because that's what he's eligible to play member guests. And I think that's where you have to draw the comparison game here.
Entirely unrelated, Luke, but if you're watching or listening and you want to tee it up at Hope Valley in about a month, I got a spot for you. So, there you go. And I also think, too, he said a couple times, he's like, I really want to win a national championship with Florida State. And it's similar to Gordon coming back at Vanderbilt. I never thought we were going to see that type of decision. And honestly, even though Nick turned pro, and I think was the right decision, and of course he validates it with another win in the same calendar year, same season, I'm sure there's part of him that wonders what it would have been like to play out the rest of the season in Alabama and see what they could have done. Those are really, really cool moments that you just get to have for a brief period of your life. So I get it. I understand the motivation there.
And Luke Clanton, obviously, we're going to keep cheering him on. If you haven't listened to the episode with Luke Clanton, go back. We've interviewed him a month or so ago, right after the John Deere, after his big week. But there's one other topic at the Wyndham Championship that's in my brain, which is, how did the Wyndham Championship perform just relative to last year, which was an absolute banger. For a minute there, right? It felt like, Max Greyserman's got a 4-shot lead. He's going to go and win this golf tournament. And there's just not as much drama around the top 70. Where last year, right, Justin Thomas, one of the, the top players on the PGA Tour over the last decade, is like the 71st guy. So the drama was there.
Almost chips in.
I know. And I guess this year the story would be Victor Perez and Davis Riley, but not as much drama to me there. But I assume you probably have just an opinion on Davis winning at Colonial, right?
Well, absolutely. I think what an interesting juxtaposition of guys, where Victor Perez, DP World Tour graduate, coming off an amazing week at a hometown or home country Olympics rather, and just blistering finish on the back nine, narrowly misses out on a medal. Everyone's rooting him on. I'm amazed that this guy got on a flight to Greensboro, North Carolina and played this week, but he was at 71st heading into the week, so he couldn't, not play this week. So to again feel a very different sort of pressure, much less, French people hanging out at Setchio Country Club to cheer him on, and to be right on the bubble of making it in this week, and then, of course, having a chance to play his way into signature events next year with a good week. Juxtaposing that against Davis Riley, where this is a guy who won an event on tour this year and misses out in the playoffs. And that's hard for me to wrap my head around, but I think it speaks to, you and I were kind of talking off camera before, and I think you have some great thoughts here just of how competitive it's gotten. And specific to this event, we're talking about Greyserman maybe was going to win it going away, but then makes it interesting at the end, and just looking at that sort of bubble competition that this event's got a great identity going forward with the playoff setup.
100%. And I think, with the top 70 guys that made it, Emiliano, hold on. It says on my app, I need to update it.
You need official projected?
I need the live projected. It hasn't quite updated yet. But in years past, Wyndham Championship, we're talking about the top 125 guys to make it to the playoffs. And so that, to me, is going from 125 to 70 guys. I'll just give you the difference from a point standpoint. When we look at the FedEx Cup points, comparing those, 654 points is top 70. That is a really nice season. When I look at 654 points for somebody who's played on tour, I would have loved that. That's a great season.
A great season.
Because you get 500 points for winning. So that's just saying that, Davis Riley earned 147 points outside of his Colonial win. So it just goes to show you that you have to play really well and consistently all year around. You can't just go out and win one time. Peter Malnati, another guy that won at Valspar, also not making the playoffs.
Yes, that's right. It's another good point.
I'm sure there's another player I'm missing there as well. But the number for 125 right now is 282. And that is probably the lowest I've ever seen this number. When I used to play on tour, it used to be, if you got to 400, you were safe. That was the number that you tried to get to. So when we talk about 70 now being at around 650 points, and I know that signature events are giving more points out now, and that's changed some things. Guys are less eligible to win more points in these open events.
Yep.
So the benchmarks and the number that you got to get has changed, but to your original point, the competitive side of the PGA Tour, I think it's legit. Like, you got to come up and show up with your lunchbox every single week, because you can't have stretches where you play bad on tour. You're not going to be here in Memphis.
I think that's a great segue too, because I think that discrepancy between 70 and 125 being so large, you'd have to attribute that to the way the schedule set up with signature events and the kind of the weighted points there. So this is something we've been tracking all season long,
right? And
looking at sort of the tour projection on the front of the year was 34 to 38% turnover, from the guys, so effectively 19 guys playing their way into signature events, and the following year 19 guys playing their way out, right? And that would be 38%, and that is currently where we sit heading into the last event that'll determine signature event qualification for next season. And I think we both found that a little bit surprising.
I had you convinced that there wasn't going to be anybody that changes in the top 50, because I was just so blown away at the points distribution list comparing a signature event and an open event, and even for, let's go past that, let's go to the ones that are the 300 point weeks, the opposite field events. You basically, like, if you go up and finish 30th that week, you might as well just get a lunchbox on your way out, because you weren't getting any points.
Yeah.
But it surprised me, and I think that I would have expected that there would have been a much tighter in that top 50. And the only thing I can think of the reason why is that Scotty Scheffler just gobbled up all the points.
That makes a ton of sense to me.
I think all the guys are just like, hey, Scotty, you just keep winning, because it's keeping the points in one place and not as much of that top 50, the guys that are playing in all these events. Because let's remember the events that Scotty all won. He won all these signature events. He's taking away the 750 points every week. So if you would have had a mixed bag of guys winning signature events this year, I think you would have seen a different result in that top. Well, I know we're top 70 right now, and this is a FedEx Cup playoff event here in Memphis that 2,000 points goes to the winner. So you're going to see a big mix up here this week. But as we maybe kind of just look ahead to 2025, that I expect it's got to be a little tighter next year, like maybe closer to 14, 15 guys. I still feel the advantage of signature events is there.
I think there could be, because I guess the place my head goes is, what was unique about this year, or where do these guys come from, right? And they actually came from some pretty unique places. Like the DP World Tour graduate class
Strong.
Had a great year. And I think that's awesome. That's like if you're trying to
Mathieu Pavon,
the big one. He didn't do so well in Paris, even though that was your guy. But I mean, I think that's got to be a success story. Of if you're trying to create, you're saying, hey, we're limiting access to these events, but we're going to create pathways for other groups of players to play their way in. Check that box. A lot of young guys having success. Even if it's Dunlap winning as an AM, and then of course qualifying for signature events and making his way in that way. And then right now obviously he needs a lot this week to get top 50 next year. But and then you kind of mentioned Scotty gobbling up a lot of the points as well. So the dynamics of next season could be different. We could have different I'm not sure how strong the DP World Tour graduates are going to be, or what other categories we're going to see guys winning out of that aren't from that signature group. But I'd say in terms of piloting a program for the first time, given the skepticism we had about this heading in, you got to kind of look at where it's at now and say that's a success. That's kind of where we want it to be.
And when I think about this too, guys that were in the top 50 last year had an opportunity to plan their whole season around the signature events.
Yep.
Now let's look at other players like Davis Thompson or Steven Yeager, players who were not inside the top 50 heading into the year. They're able to put a bit of an emphasis on every open event as an opportunity to get themselves inside the top 50 for the next year, and say maybe these guys were they had more to play for at these open events and more opportunities to go out and try to win, maybe for less points. But when you look at guys at signature events who maybe didn't have good years and weren't playing as well, they're playing against better competition. And so the opportunities where they're playing against lesser competition, they're only doing it half of the amount of the time as maybe a Davis Thompson or a Steven Yeager, who's playing against I would say maybe the weaker fields that aren't the signature events. But that's why that was proposed at the signature events. You still got to go play well, because if you don't play as well, it puts in more of an emphasis for you to go out these open events and have to go out and play well.
Yeah, and I mean, and look at, or how about like guys like Billy Horschel?
Yeah, he was having a great year. Only played one signature event.
And I think, and it sets up too for some interesting storylines next year. I think that's my biggest question mark going forward, is how are we going to continue to use the exemptions? Because if we're looking at the numbers and the stats and it's telling us the turnover is where we want it to be at a number we're all comfortable with, because I don't think anyone's going to argue it needs to be more than 38%. I think at that point, what's the kind of the purpose of the event anyway? But I think there was some sort of questions around, who the exemptions were going to and for what reason. And I think you and I would both like to see, a little more Minwoo Lee next year. I mean, that's our guy. But, Keith Mitchell and guys like that, and just, or maybe some younger guys as well, just a mix of guys, give them some chance to play their way in, play their way into a swing 5 category or a next 10 category or whatever it is. But I'd say overall, that's a good first year for the signature event program.
The sponsors invites didn't bother me at all this year. I understand they went to players like Webb Simpson. I think he got one in just about every one. Like next year, Ricky's going to get an exemption into just about every one, and he draws a crowd.
Sure,
he draws a crowd, and he's been great to a lot of these events, and they want him back. So why wouldn't you want him there? And I think that that sponsors invites get so debated by people, and there's 4 of them, right? Like maybe there should be more. That's a debatable topic, but they can do whatever the heck they want. And it's been a little political at times. The Pebble Beach one I thought was a little political, as it was very policy board. Maverick McNeely, Peter Malnati being 2 picks. They were like, wait, hold on. Peter Malnati got picked over who? Right?
Yeah.
That was like that was one where I can understand the debate. But yeah.
Well, and I think in some of those guys, you got to cash in on those. Adam Scott, I believe, inside the signature event list right now, making the most of those making those sponsor exemptions. So Smylie,
it's a big week. That's why this is a big week.
This is a big week, and thrilled to see how it plays out. And what do we have? I know you haven't had a chance to fully walk the course yet. I'd say give me your brief course notes, and then you're going to do some walking the next 2 days, and we're really going to dig into it. Here's what I'd love for you to share that I thought was interesting listening to you and Nick talk about was the most crucial tee shots on this course.
Yeah.
Like the moments where a guy's gonna have to stand up on a tee and really pull a shot off and make it happen, so you can kind of win this event or get yourself in contention to make it next week past that top 50 line.
TPC Southwind's a golf course that it's typically stood the test of time with the growth of the technology boom in the game of golf. When we talk about, we need to keep lengthening golf courses to make it challenging for pros. Well, this golf course hasn't changed anything. Really, they haven't lengthened it a ton. What they have done, though, it's a strategical, positional type of golf course where you got to put the ball in the fairway because the rough is a flyer's paradise, meaning it's hard to get spin on the golf ball coming out of the rough, and the greens are firm. They tuck the pins. So when you have Bermuda rough and you have firm greens, that keeps the scoring manageable. That's kind of the two main things when it comes to keeping these guys challenged, right? Is making them hit the fairway and then firm green. So you got that out here. You can obviously take it deep out here if you're hitting fairways, but they are narrow. You've seen a lot of players that have played well here are guys that just are able to find fairways. So as I go and check out this golf course this week, I think that'll be kind of the consensus for what I'll try to figure out in my research is, are the fairways firm? Are they soft? Are the balls rolling out in the fairways? Because it could, if the fairways are soft, it brings out a lot more guys, right? But if they're firm, now you have to really be able to manage your ball out here.
Well, Smylie, it's starting to get a little warm, starting to get a little steamy, feeling some raindrops out here. I walked 11 minutes from a Holiday Inn Express to a Starbucks this morning for a wrap that I ate at 7:30 a.m., and I'm absolutely running on fumes right now.
He's famished.
Somebody feed me right now. So
Let's get him some barbecue right here.
Give me some barbecue, give me a snow cone. I'll eat anything you put in front of me right now. I might eat these plants behind you, but what the next time we'll be talking to the audience, people, we're going to be indoors and in the clubhouse here, TPC Southwind. I've got a little sneak peek of the location. It's going to be a really, really cool
Sweet.
setup. So looking forward to that on Wednesday night. That episode will drop with another special guest, potentially a recurring guest. But until then, Smylie, what do you want to leave the good people with as we head out?
Ooh, man. Gosh, I need to come more prepared for these because I
always give you a final thoughts tee up. I don't feel like I can close the episode without it.
What did I do this weekend? I played golf.
We might play golf this week.
Yeah, we might play golf this week. We'll see. I'm debating on whether I should keep interlock or go back to overlap grip. So that's a big topic of conversation when it comes to my golf brain.
Okay.
So I'll keep you posted on that. But other than that, pretty chill week. Good 2 weeks at home. I'm pumped about being here. This is going to be great. 70 dudes battling for 50 spots in Denver. But I'm also excited for, we got a lot of great shows coming up.
Yeah, thrilled to be on site this week and the next two as well. So hope you enjoyed today's episode, and we'll be back here on Wednesday. Not here in the larger sense, but in a different location here at TPC Southwind for more preview of the FedEx St. Jude Championship. We appreciate you watching and listening, and we will talk to you then.
I listen to this podcast. It's really cool. And
all of our local fans and subscribers, but make sure you like and subscribe.
It's cool to see what you guys are doing. I know golf fans appreciate it, but we do too, so please keep it up.
For all the good people at YouTube, like and subscribe.
You guys have some good takes, so I'm happy to come on and shoot the